Welcome to Scrutinize My System. For this episode, we will take a look at the other side of macOS family tree and explore the real grandfather of the modern-day operating system. This is the story of NeXTSTEP version 1. When Steve Jobs severed ties with Apple Incorporated in 1985, he almost immediately gathered developers and designers that also fell away from the large company. He was fixated on pursuing technological advances despite losing his position at the previous company he co-founded. This time, he had full control. No boards to argue with, no power struggle, no secret projects behind his back. He promptly took advantage of the position, and using his own finances, he founded his new company, NeXT Incorporated. By this point, there was a danger with a new company in the tech industry. The market was flooded with computers, all different shapes, sizes, and functionality. Apple and IBM had a stronghold on the majority of the market, and their influences inadvertently created standards that gradually were adopted by other companies to make clones and compatible machines. However, there was still a challenge that was unmet. Before Steve Jobs severed ties with Apple, a challenge was given to him. The challenge was to build what was called the 3M computer for the Carnegie Mellon University. The 3M stood for 1 megabyte of memory or RAM, 1 megapixel display, and 1 million instructions per second capabilities. It would take 3 years, but on October 12, 1988, that computer was announced. Equipped with a Motorola 68030 processor, it met the requirements with a few compromises. The first compromise was the lack of color, which was deliberate to cut the cost of the machine. The second was the enormous size of the chassis, making it cumbersome in an average work environment. The operating system, NeXTSTEP, was built on top of an existing Unix core called the Berkeley Software Distribution, or BSD for short. Though able to run Unix programs just fine, Steve Jobs told everyone that once they learn how to use NeXTSTEP, they won't want to. The system was easy, fast, and surprisingly stable. With a software development kit that is so simple that a child can create programs, the system would cut significant costs in developing software for these machines, especially specific to an industry or a corporation. The same machine would later be used to invent one of the biggest advancements in modern technology, the World Wide Web.
So I was debating on whether I wanted to show you the prototype versions of NeXTSTEP, and for the sake of time, I was originally going to decide not to, but I figured I might as well show them anyway since they're available. So there's two of them I'm going to show. There's going to be the NeXTSTEP 0.8 and NeXTSTEP 0.9, and then afterwards we'll talk about, I'll show you NeXTSTEP 1.0, the official release. So NeXTSTEP 0.8 was the one that was demonstrated in front of a live audience. So let's go ahead and boot this up. And the interesting thing about this operating system is it always checks for network configurations first. So obviously this isn't a virtual machine. I don't exactly have networking in this virtual machine, so it's going to fail. We'll just bypass that, which is not that big of a deal. It's pretty self-reliant despite constantly searching on the network for configuration, which is, I mean, if you're in a corporate setting, that's probably encouraged, but the 0.8 version, obviously there's not a whole lot here. There's a icon of a CD here, which doesn't really do a whole lot here, besides the directory. We've got a lot of files, surprisingly, a lot of files. There's a my disk, which becomes the pretty much it's the home. We got admins. Most of these, there's a lot of folders. Unfortunately, I don't think I can open half of this stuff though. Yeah, permission denied. Okay, maybe I have to go in as a administrator, which I don't really want to do. There is documentation though, kind of, and I do apologize. This mouse is in the virtual machine isn't exactly the easiest to use. I don't know why. So this is interesting. They have documentation for Unix, and then they have documentation for Next. And As you may have heard earlier, this operating system was based upon, well, actually, it was built on top of Unix, so it has a Unix core. Next is essentially the GUI built on top of it, and ideally it was supposed to make everything really easy and smooth and everything. It was supposed to have a lot of, the idea of Next was to build a lot of built-in code, which is why there's a lot of files right off the bat. You're supposed to have a lot of pre-configured code, so you can essentially just copy and paste the code into pretty much whatever you want it to. There's not a whole lot in the folders themselves besides like system stuff, but pretty much Unix at this point. So there's not a whole lot to explore. There's not even like a settings thing where you can configure and do stuff with. So let's go ahead and shut this down. We'll go into version 0.9. Alright, so this one is NeXTSTEP version 0.9, so it's still in beta. But I do want to show a couple changes. So for here, they largely kept most of this stuff. At this point, you got to hit Control-C because we don't have this thing connected to a network host. Excuse me. The operating system, when you boot it up, will immediately start looking for a like a network configuration host. I don't know the exact term for it, but they seek out a server where it's asking, okay, hey, what can I do? What can I not do? What configurations do you want me to do? And that was starting with 0.9. 1.0 and later, they changed it just a little bit, but where you can just bypass it after you get an error. But for this one, you have to abort it halfway, otherwise you get stuck on not a boot loop, but you get stuck in the terminal. So this is 0.9. You can see there's a lot more in this thing already. And let's go through some of this. So this, you can click this, you can just drag it up and down and everything. I don't know if you can quite move it to the other side just yet. But you can see here it says 0.9, so that's the version. Click on this, you've got your printer. There's nothing plugged into here. I mean, this one here is your preference. Now in the later versions, you'll see like a date on here and a time, which will show you that in the next operating system, which will be in this episode. And you can tell they haven't quite finished all the icons yet because you just see password here, and then you just see startup. And you got Ethernet, which this is interesting here because in 1988, the twisted pair standard for Ethernet wasn't quite mainstream yet. They were still using what they call thick net and thin net. Imagine a coaxial cable carrying your network data. That's pretty much what they had back in the late 80s. Now, twisted pair was starting to come out, but everybody was using these ones, so that's why this machine came equipped with that instead. You got the mouse configurations and everything, and you'll notice some of these icons will change. You got the display, you got your volume, automatic dimming, brightness, etc., etc. Your preferences here. I would demonstrate the voice, but this virtual machine doesn't have any sound, unfortunately. You can configure the time. I'm not going to worry about that. Obviously, you can tell it's wrong because it says it's May in 1970. And the seconds are ticking unusually fast. Looks like it's skipping a couple seconds too. That's interesting. But that's the virtual machine. That's not the machine itself. You have email client, which is new. Everybody was starting to just get into email at this point. I mean, email's been around since the 70s, but this is when you can tell Next was the first one to commercially push for it. Notice, too, when I start dragging this around, it drags the whole window instead of putting the wireframe on there. We take that for granted now, but back then that was a huge selling point for this thing. It was just, ooh, you get to render all the graphics as you're moving it around. Again, stuff we take for granted today, but and then you got your date and time up here. You can send your emails. We got this thing. It's basically your notepad. And you have the option to save, which it gives you a couple different formats, surprisingly, for just like a text editor. ASC2 text, which ASC2 is this modern standard for 8-bit characters. This is Digital Webster, which I'm not quite sure what this is. I think it's a dictionary. We're about to find out. It is a dictionary. Okay, that's cool. So two markets that, I should bring this up. Two markets that this operating system and the machine itself was targeted towards was education and large businesses. Because they're trying to make a machine that was strong and capable and being able to upload an entire dictionary thesaurus and whatever library you wanted to at the time. Speaking of library, we got the digital librarian, and funny enough, this seems to be like their biggest push is having, Shakespeare on here. So we can say Romeo, and immediately pulls up Romeo on here. I don't know if there's got to be a way to pull up just the entire book itself. The most excellent and lamentable tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. I forgot to pull this out. The directory browser, you notice that there's a lot less that's just kind of thrown in here. I mean, the files are still there from the previous version. It's just this one is more on the on the user side of stuff instead of showing all the system files from Unix. And there are there demos here? There are demos. Oh, it's a game. Okay. I'm doing a really bad job. I don't know how to play this game, but okay. Why don't we go through all these? I'm curious. We got billiards. That is not English. Le jeu de billard. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm just gonna briefly go through this. This is too fast to play. There's no way I can play that. We got clock. Just a basic clock. DSP music, which we're not going to be able to demo because this thing doesn't have any sound, unfortunately. Kind of disappointed in that. We got draw. Okay, that was fun. Now here's something interesting. I don't know if you've noticed this already, but a lot of these apps, they say apps on them, APP on them. You'll notice that's going to not go away. That's going to stay around for like a really long time. This is not launching. Why is that not launching? I guess it's broken. Go game. Oh boy. Okay, that's it was the 80s. Nobody cared in the 80s. Ooh, we can make icons. And there's a lot of stuff in here already. Just stuff. So, Laserdisc, I thought this was interesting. I guess they got software to run Laserdisc. Is that what's going on? I don't have the hardware to demonstrate that, but the app is there. Oh, and when these icons pop up, too, you can drag them pretty much anywhere. Or you can snap them onto the dock over here. They call it a dock. And funny enough, you can drag stuff off of the dock. What is this? I don't know what that is. We got a preview, which just shows the pictures. We got poker. Anybody want to gamble? Yeah, I was never good at gambling anyways. Scene. I have no idea what this is. Oh. Oh, you can change the wallpaper on this. Okay. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so this is like an early version of the wallpaper. Okay, so that's all the developer sample apps, I guess. Um, we got this thing I didn't get a chance to go to, Mathematica. As you can imagine, this is pretty much just a glorified calculator, and I'll show you. So we can do, let's start off with something simple, 2 plus 2, which we already know is going to be, okay, there we go. Yeah, 2 plus 2 is 4, but check this out. This will also take equations. So let's say 2x plus y divided by z. Then I'll just, okay, admittedly I have not played around with it this much, but allegedly it's supposed to solve math problems and do all kinds of fancy things for you, which, again, I haven't had a chance to play around with. Apparently there's a graph in here. 3D viewpoint selector. Okay, this just got interesting. But yeah, so this one here, even though it looks like a 3D rendering thing, it's actually a calculator, which I guess is supposed to do it. This is probably the biggest sell point in this operating system, is that you have the interface builder, which pretty much you can just drag and drop whatever you want. There's instructions on how to do this stuff somewhere. I personally don't know, but anyway, so this is Next 0.9. Oh, I didn't even show you this. Deleted files. Okay, you know what? Before I cause too much damage, let's shut this down. Let's go to version 1.0. Alright, so this one is NeXTSTEP 1.0. So this is the first official release of NeXTSTEP for the Next computer. So let's go ahead and boot this up. Type C to start a computer without a network connection. You can already tell this is going to be different. So that is a good sign. There is some improvement, so you don't have to like abort it halfway through the boot sequence. But you notice that a lot of it is still the same. We got this, which is we can build a local disk if we wanted to. That was something I forgot to demonstrate. Largely everything else is the same. So we got the print manager, and then you'll notice on here now the time and the date is ticking, even though for some strange reason the clock isn't quite working all the way. They finished the icons, and they added this on here, expert preferences, which gives you the ability to control the read, write, and execute options for both the owners, the groups, and other people. So basic user control and everything. You got power options, which when you boot it up, you have the option to boot it off a hard disk itself, which is pretty standard for computers, optical disk, or the network. And these icons did change a little bit. Password. We got the time, which this one is set to June 2012. We know that's not accurate. We got the fonts, and then we got the system beat. I wish I could demonstrate this, but again, my emulator doesn't support sound. So everything kind of moved around a little bit. The design's a little different since 0.9, even though the I probably should have mentioned this, but I was looking up some documentation between 0.9 and 1.0. And initially they said it was going to be the same thing, but there's some minor changes. Oh, the date and time's gone again. So we got the email. Email's largely unchanged. You can synchronize your email on here and email stuff from here. I'm gonna have to try that on one of the virtual virtual machine that I can actually get online. So we got write, which is your standard text editor. You can come in here, you can save it as pretty much anything you want, including, well, we got right now, which is a file format. We got the ASC2 text, Digital Webster, your pretty much dictionary if you need to look up words. We got the library here, which the interface has changed a little bit. Something I wanted to bring up too, you'll probably notice a lot of people have been noticing that there's very similar graphical designs between this and later versions, or I shouldn't say later versions, but the earlier versions of Windows NT as well as Windows 9X. So that includes 95, 98, and Windows 2000 or Windows Millennium Edition. Windows 2000 also looks like this, but that's technically Windows NT. But anyways, a lot of people are kind of speculating that Microsoft ripped the design off of this, even though largely a lot of people kind of had a very similar graphical design on their computers even at this time. Still got Mathematica, which they don't have the fancy graphics, and you notice the type or the cursor is sideways this time. We got the interface builder. That might be why I couldn't get it working. I didn't start a new project. So I can probably come over here and start grabbing. Yeah, there we go. Okay. This is kind of cool. I kind of want this machine for myself now. I mean, I got it on a virtual machine, but it's not going to be the same thing. And then we got our disk builder as well. So, let's go ahead and open the directories again. Let's go ahead and close that. Got Next Developer, which only gives us one app this time, which is kind of strange. It's a debugging app, so I guess it kind of makes sense. We got music, which I think goes through the MIDI system. Got Mathematica, literature, Shakespeare, so the basic stuff. I mean, it's a lot for basic, surprisingly, but there's basic stuff in here. We got images from... Okay, maybe we don't. So most of the apps are here. We have a terminal in here that we can actually access. So this is your basic Linux stuff on here. It looks like it just kind of throws us into the me file, which is this one here, which kind of makes sense. Want super user. Incomplete turn cap editing. Just what? That was weird. Okay. So super user is pretty easy to get into. So hopefully, if this was deployed in a corporate setting, they would have had means to secure that. But it's not my job to dictate to every single company what kind of security issues they need to address. Okay, so this one is 1.0a, which I don't imagine too much has changed besides maybe some patches and everything. I didn't check the update log for this one. Yeah, so largely nothing's really changed from here. We still got... we can go down the list of everything, and it's still... I mean, the print manager's changed a little bit. Preferences is relatively the same. Even graphics wise, it's pretty much the same. Email. Yeah, nothing's changed. I bet I can boot all this all at once. I wonder how wonder if this virtual machine can take it. Why not? Let's stress it. Yeah, largely nothing's changed. Yeah, so that's it. So this is NeXTSTEP version 1, and we did go over the betas. Thanks for watching. If stay tuned for more episodes of Scrutinize My System. We've got more next operating systems on the way. We've got Macintosh, we've got Windows, we've got OS 2. And we got a couple others that we're going to be doing. We got this one is the history of macOS 10, We're also doing the history of Windows, so if you want to see that, stay tuned for more episodes. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.